Hey, everybody, and welcome to the newest episode of the Results Method podcast, where Sarah and I are going to dive into some of the aspects that we consider when we're looking at whether or not someone is ready to embark on a goal that they've set, whether that be, stage, a marathon, a high rocks competition, like literally anything. It's probably stage primarily, but it goes across the board.
Yeah, and I think what a lot of people listening probably don't know about you is you've actually turned people away from specific goals and told them now is not the right time for various reasons, and you've actually lost clients over this. So
yes,
why?
I have, and it's quite crazy when you think about it, because like if it was me and I knew that the time, well, even if I didn't know, what I guess I would be looking for is someone to tell me, hey, you don't know what you don't know. These are the reasons why this genuinely might not be the right time. It's not that it's not, you can't do this, and it's not that it's not for you, but it's just simply maybe it's not right now, right? I would actually want that from someone. So when I get a situation where people go, oh, okay, see, I'm going to go over here because they'll do it for me, I'm like, wow, okay.
Yeah.
Gee whiz, like your health just doesn't even register to you, does it? Because look, my responsibility as far as I'm concerned is not about getting someone to a stage or to a finish line. Yes, as part of a performance goal or a physique aesthetic, sport-based goal, that is, yes. But my real responsibility as an accredited practitioner is actually to protect the long-term health while helping them perform at their absolute best. And so you can't have, both ends of that spectrum 9 times out of 10. And I think, this is probably the thing. This is my biggest ick in the industry. It's so easy to say yes. It is so easy to just go, yeah, cool, we can do that. Let's go. Without looking into all of the stuff that is actually really important, because let's face it, prep sells, stage photo sells, getting to the finish line and having some form of timed outcome sells, transformation sell. But as far as I'm concerned, with every single yes comes a very deep responsibility. With great power comes great responsibility, right? So I'm like, yes, it blows my mind when I do lose the occasional client, but at the same time, in that same breath, I feel like I've done the right thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. And like you've even said to me, now's not the right time to compete on a few occasions. And, there's lots of different reasons why you tell people
100%
not to compete. And I think sometimes as an athlete or someone who is an aspiring competitor, it would be really hard to hear that now is not the right time. But if you're investing in a coach or looking for a coach to invest in that, actually asking the right questions, then that would be a green flag, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. And look, I'm always of the viewpoint that if someone is not psychologically or situationally or physiologically ready for a prep, and they were told yes, then someone has just literally chosen a short-term business benefit over a long-term athlete welfare, right? So again, sometimes not hearing what you want to hear is actually coming from the best possible place for you. And I think that's genuine coaching, right? That's not selling. That's genuine coaching. So before anyone goes through a process of going, I'm going to do this, this is my big, hairy, audacious goal, I think there needs to be a solid assessment process, right? And I think making sure that the deeper, harder questions are being asked, both of yourself and, someone else doing the assessment process with you. Because if not, I think that what you're getting is a situation where the process itself is going to create some pretty big issues for you. And sometimes those things are not short-lived, right? So again, this is where I think it's super important. The biggest mistake people make, I think, is that they base it on one thing, which is, I'm motivated to go, let's go do this thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And what should,
I'm ready.
I guess, what should coaches be asking, or like, what are you asking clients when they're
look,
started?
there's so many things, right? And so many questions that I have prior to someone even considering. 9 times out of 10, though, you know, from lived experience with me, Sarah, it's anyone that's been working with me for a while, we are already setting up the foundations and the things that require the big green ticks before we even discuss the possibility of a prep process, right? So that's where, if you've been in a really good coaching relationship and you've done the foundation work, that's where that actually sets you up to be able to do these things. So when it becomes tricky is if I get someone that comes to me and they're like, oh, I've always wanted to do this. I think I'm ready. I want you to take me to stage. And I'm catching them in what I would call not quite the 11th hour, because they're still giving me time to do usually a prep process, meaning like a 20-week cut, but I haven't built anything, right? So the fact you want to do it is great. The fact that it's on your, bucket list is wonderful. The fact that you've been even potentially putting yourself through build phases prior is fine. The fact that you're motivated to go, great. But motivation wanes and it's not the underpinning success factor, right? What I am looking for is capacity. And what I'm also looking for is, consistency and what have things historically looked like, right? You share a little bit about some of the times where we've put a pause on things, because there have been a couple, and it's been about stuff that's like, not just the physical side.
Yeah. I mean, I can remember even my first call with you, like before you were my coach, it was like a consult call. And I was kind of like, oh, this is the stage date that I'm wanting to work towards. And this is how long I thought prep might be. And you're like, we actually need to start now. Like, we need to start building these processes now. And we need to go through, this, and this to check, everything's in the right place first. And so we did. We started, the next day and went into a build and did, optimize health and everything before a prep. And there's been a few occasions where, we've had a year, 18 months, 2 years off stages, because one, we've been, needing to build muscle, but two, we've been wanting to, optimize health. And then we've had other things going on with
life stuff. Remember, changing jobs, stuff moving going countries. On, moving countries, and in your case, moving houses 1 million times.
Yeah.
All of the things, right? So it doesn't always look just physical. It can be situational, environmental would be the key term there. But I call it situationships, because sometimes those things can come in sideways, right? And completely derail an otherwise relatively smooth process. So, I definitely think that asking the question of, can you stick to a meal plan, is completely insufficient, because what really should be monitored or assessed is, does your current physiology, your psychology, and your lifestyle / environmental situationship have enough reserve capacity to tolerate potentially 6 months of enduring stress? Because that's exactly what it's going to be. And increasing levels of stress, sometimes on 1, 2, or all of those things we just highlighted that we're assessing. So it's like, cool, where do they sit to start with? And if any of them are compromised, you probably can't move forward, right?
Yeah.
I would think so.
Yeah, exactly. So walk us through when someone reaches out and they've got one of these big goals, like, for example, competing. What are you actually looking at?
Oh my God. Okay. So I probably divide it into the 4 major domains that I just mentioned. So if one is compromised, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a complete no. Because let's say lifestyle might be one of them, right? There might be things that might be solvable inside of that. If, however, it's not, then the answer is almost always, yes, we will do this thing. We're just not doing it right now. And this is where I think we need to go. This is where I think the gaps are, or these are the things we need to work on to make that happen at this point in time, right? So if we look at physiological readiness, which is usually where I primarily start, because I don't care what motivation looks like, I'm looking at baseline metabolic health. And one of the biggest things for me is energy availability from the context of how long has this person sat in the last 12 months? This is always one of the biggest indicators for me immediately. How long in the last 12 months has this person sat out of a deficit? And if it is like 4 months or 5 months, cool, this person ain't ready yet. Very largely unlikely that they're ready yet. So it's looking at whether or not the levels of lower EA states are really short-lived and not over prolonged periods of time. It's looking at whether or not they've had really great recovery capacity. I'm assessing if they've had any blood work done recently. What does that look like? What's that, sort of informing us? Is the menstrual cycle intact? Because menstrual health is not a nice to have. It is a absolute pillar of overall health, right? If it's offline, that's telling you something. Digestion, sleep, resting, heart rate, like a whole bunch of other things, give me a lot of information. Injury history and prevalence of that gives me information. Previous dieting history, absolutely important. So kind of, as you can tell, when someone's with me for a long period of time, I don't even need to ask these questions because we've already got all of the foundations and the building blocks in place. And we already know. We know that their EA is good. We know that their recoverability is high. We know that they've had beautiful reproductive health online for, quite a long period of time. They've spent most of the previous year in maintenance or surplus.
Yeah, phases. And I think like going into a prep as well, when you are actually physiologically ready, feels so much easier as well.
100%, because prep is an accumulative stress, right? So if you don't start from zero, wherever anyone is at this point in time, that is exactly where the prep starts. So if you're not at a base of really well recovered starting point, you are already starting behind the 8 ball with a level of accumulated stress, and prep just keeps adding to it. So it's like, okay, we're borrowing from a bank account that's technically already overdrawn. That is not going to be financially feasible for very long. So if we think about that physiologically, we don't want to go and put this person into a negative state simply because they put a pressure on a deadline.
Yeah, right? I think that's such a good analogy for it with the bank account. Like people don't look at it like that as their starting point and then just going lower and lower and lower.
Lower and lower and lower and pushing themselves more and more. And like low EA doesn't suddenly occur at the end of prep either, by the way, guys. This happens, well, usually into the early phases for prep for a lot of people. And then it's chronic underfueling with exercise being increasingly turned up and repeated dieting over whatever the period of time frame is, right? So we don't want to ignore these signs. Like, prep should start in a really healthy EA state and then literally be something that is managed the whole way throughout because it accelerates symptoms over time, right? So EA identification and risk management is super important. I've mentioned it a lot because it's probably one of the most least understood components inside of contest prep, and physique sports. But it's also, even inside of our performance-based, sports and fueling. So I've got high rocks athletes that were significantly underfueled. I've got marathon runners who were significantly underfueled. I had a marathon runner that did a run and before he came to me and literally took no fuel or water on board for the whole run.
Whoa.
And I was like, how are you not dead?
Yes.
I would have died. And he goes, oh, well, I actually hit my threshold at this hour, at this point. He goes, and I just pushed through.
Wow.
You're a nut job.
I bet he feels so much better fueled.
Yeah, exactly. And now we're going into triathlon. So now he's doing multidisciplinary double sessions, so in a day, and understanding a lot more about why it's important, where he needs to sit, and we periodize leading into and out of events, right? So it's more than just simply looking at calories. It's understanding the much bigger picture, which is that EA is the amount of energy that is required for normal physiological function after exercise has been accounted for. So if exercise is using absolutely everything, all of the other functions are downregulated, taken offline, not even in operation, essentially, right? So when EA becomes chronically low, body starts making adaptations, which means it reduces reproductive hormones. It basically reduces thyroid output. It compromises your bone health. It basically gives you poor recovery, higher injury risk profile, and the list goes on. So when someone says to me, I don't mind if I don't have my period for a little bit, I'm like, yes, you do.
They're sacrificing, that
Yes,
long-term health for such a short-term goal.
Yep. So do people lose their cycle coming into stage? Yes. And it happens, and you want it to be for a shorter period as possible. If you have already lost it and you're starting a prep, you are not starting a prep. That is just absolutely negligent to do that.
Yeah. It's scary how many people just
do that.
Don't care about it. And you see them talking about it on social media, normalizing it.
Yeah, I know. And it shouldn't be. So before prep, I'm always actively screening for EA, running it all the way through. Has menstrual function changed? Has libido changed? I'm looking for whether or not they constantly feel cold. They've had plateaus in training. Are they getting sick repeatedly? Are we seeing suppressed immune function? How long have they been dieting for? How many previous preps have they done? What has their actual recovery phase in between preps look like? They're not random questions. These are all markers that show me the history that I don't have if they haven't already been with me. So it tells me how much physiological reserve we have available. And it's really scary sometimes, the answers I get. And it worries me that people are comfortable to say yes.
Yeah.
It really worries me. Stresses me out sometimes. But at the same time, I've kind of just got to go, okay, cool. Not my circus, not my monkeys. You know what I mean? I can't control what other people do. I just got to do what I do, try to do it very well, and with my athletes' long-term welfare at the forefront of my mind always. So, you know what? If you're listening to this and you're not someone that likes the concept of being told you have to wait to do something, then you definitely aren't going to be for me. But you're probably also not going to have great health for a very long period of time too. Again, I don't think being told to wait on something is a direct representation of your inability to do something. I think it is someone genuinely caring about how you do it, how you get there, and what you look like on the other end.
Yeah, I think it's a level of awareness as well of what your own body is doing 100%. And your health and kind of where your baseline sits and where it should sit too. I think a lot of people are not educated on that because not many people are talking about it. Not many coaches 100%. Are educating on EA. You're the first person I've heard talking about it.
Yeah.
So I think,
no, it's quite scary.
Having that education out there is a big, big part.
And I see conversations that I'll have with athletes that have prepped previously where they're like, I don't even know what that is. Oh, what do you mean? And no one's ever talked about that with me before. And definitely no one's ever tracked it. And no one's asked me those questions in a check-in before. But they're flags of symptoms of low EA. So they should be a primary feature in every check-in. But anyway, look, that's a whole nother podcast conversation. So the next thing that I'm looking at is foundational behaviors, because without them, you can't do this. If you can't already demonstrate that you have consistency, it doesn't have to be perfection, but consistency in application of the things that are required under really high levels of rigidity and restriction during a prep process prior to the prep process, then I'm telling you, you're going to fail. And everyone wants advanced programming. Everyone wants the perfect on paper textbook prep process. But hardly anyone wants to accept that without mastering consistency of some really boring basics prior to that process won't actually work. It won't serve you.
Yeah, I could completely agree with that. I know at the start of my journey, I was like, okay, I need to be taking this supplement and this thing and doing this and, adjusting this in my workout. And, all I needed to do was actually just improve my sleep and my steps and be consistent most of the time with my nutrition. Whereas I was looking for all these little 1%ers, but I just didn't have the basics nailed first. And as soon as you get those basics nailed, there's so much more room to improve those little things.
And then those 1%ers actually become 1%ers, right? Yes. Because you can't do that if you haven't nailed the 99% below it, right? Yep. So what am I looking for and what habits do I think should be automatically in play? Well, I think training consistency. I think meal structure should be consistent in a day. I think there should be protein, anchored, adequate, sleep routine on point with great bedtime hygiene. I think overall daily movement should be, there should be awareness around it. There should be some form of, focus on it. Stress management should be something that is pretty well moderated. Like, I'm not saying you need to be some Buddhist monk guru with meditation, but I am saying that you need to be someone that can and is capable of self-regulating and managing self in certain situations that become pressurized, because prep is going to turn the heat up on every single burner on your stove. And if you don't know how to dance between the pots on some occasions, then it's just not going to end well. And I know you've been in phases where we've had some stuff pop up, and it's like, if we hadn't have built those stress management strategies for you in the off season, in the foundation phase, you probably wouldn't have had the outcomes you had on stages.
Yeah.
We had several where there were big blow ups in the middle of stuff.
Yeah. And I was going to say, we worked on building those stress management techniques so that when it did pop up, we could actually deal with it. It wasn't about getting rid of anything stressful, because there's so much that you just can't control. Right. It was actually building that resilience and those techniques that we have to use when things do pop up.
And that's where, we talk about it all the time, don't not check in on a bad week. Because bad weeks is where we build those. So it's like, check in, because then we can actually discuss them and create stuff around it, right? Yeah. Because stress won't go away, life doesn't go away, stuff is always going to take you sideways. It's the foundations are being built so that then they don't in a prep process, because you have a level or a degree of resilience to deal with them, right? So recovery habits, hydration. If someone's sitting there and they're like, I can't even get to 2 liters of water a day, I'm like, cool. Until you nail that, we're not stepping into anything else. That is the most minimum basic level of self-care. If you can't, the way I think about this is, if you can't keep one single pot plant alive in your house, you possibly have problems. And when you think about it, we are big, living, breathing pot plants. Like, we need watering and sunlight every damn day. It needs to be a focus. Like, keep your plant alive, people. Like, you're a plant. Water yourself. So for me, I'm like, okay, cool. Hydration, like, let's get that nailed. You need to be able to food prep, even just to do the basics, and or have a really good company that has it all done for you. There needs to be no gaps there, right? And I think prep, I should say, amplifies what already exists. So if you've got some stuff and some gaps and some issues and some challenges, prep's going to make those feel like they're a million times heavier in weight when you're in it. So it's like, okay, cool. Let's strengthen your shit first. I don't want to build from scratch in the depths of what I sometimes joke about with my prep clients is the Gaza Strip with your legs blown off some days. That's what it's going to feel like. I don't want to do that in the prep process. In fact, I won't do it. So you need to prep it first. You need to prepare all this stuff and have the foundations built first. So one of my favorite sayings is, we don't rise to the level of our goals. We fall to the level of our systems.
Yeah, I love that. And I think as well, when you have those systems in place before you start prep, and then you just, turn up the dial a little bit during prep, post-show is going to be so much easier because you're 100%. Falling back on those same systems 100%. That feel normal.
Definitely. So if you come out the back end of prep and you are doing all sorts of crazy shit, it's usually because prep has exposed your weak systems and it will do so very quickly. Yeah. So if you don't have the systems, you're just not ready. And then I guess my fourth one, which is a really big one, is psychological readiness. And I've talked about this so many times because this one probably determines more decisions than anything else. I'd say the EA and the metabolic health is right up there. And then this is really close second for me, because the first thing I'm looking at is, can this athlete separate self-worth from body composition? Because if I get any dialogue or conversation where it is intertwined and there is no separation, then I am immediately like, okay, that's definitely a potential flag for me. And something we've got to usually work through, right? And you've seen it with athletes, like, ones that you come across because you're talking to so many in your space all the time that are not my athletes, and you hear it and see it often. I see it on social media often. I'm like, oh gosh.
I think it's something a lot of people struggle with, but it's also, again, something that's quite normalized.
I see it on socials where I'm like watching a girl talk one way, post one way, and I'm like, oh, and she's getting likes and people are engaging with it. And I'm like, man, that is like the first sign of some disordered stuff.
Yeah.
And that's getting rewarded. I just find it so scary. Like, it freaks me out for my kids coming through. I've got to admit, like, it really does. Sometimes social media it's a vehicle that I like because it gives you the opportunity to try to educate, from a good place. But then there are also those spaces where you go, oh my gosh, what gets rewarded sometimes.
Yeah.
So the second thing after that, which is my primary focus when I'm thinking about a psychological point of view, my second thing is, can this person take feedback on? I think that is the most important part. If I have to be honest with you and you can't take that, then that's really concerning, because it means that your ability to respond when something doesn't go to plan is going to be really minimalized, and you're probably going to crumble under the first point of pressure, right? Yeah. So it's not like I sit there and tell someone that they're crap. I never do that. But it's like, I might tell them, though, that something actually needs more work, more focus, or more time, and it might not marry up with their expectation. And that is where I find feedback can often be taken negatively, rather than it just being an ability to focus on something more to improve upon, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that comes back to, again, like, if you're an athlete and you're trusting an expert, you actually just need to trust their opinion and listen to it, because you've come to them for a reason.
And then the other thing too for me is that leads to people that catastrophize. So if the smallest thing goes wrong and they can't be flexible around that, then I already know that come peak week, come show day, come something leading into the final depths of the prep, something goes wrong, I already know what they're going to be like. And they're going to be, sounds bad, but a nightmare.
You see some people just losing it over the smallest things.
Yes. Like, and my view has always been, expect everything to go wrong, because it will, because it's just the nature of this game. So when you get into peak week and, you get a wardrobe malfunction, laugh about it. Find someone that has a goddamn sewing kit and get it fixed. Like that should be your attitude. Move forward with the grace of God, there go I attitude of, yep, we knew this was going to happen. Let's just walk through the fire anyway. Because with a smile on my face, because you take that stuff to stage. And I have actually had athletes that have missed out on top 3 podium finishes purely because they have got in their head. It's affected their presentation. It's affected their performance on stage. The conditioning was never the problem, but they screwed it for themselves because they got in their head over something very small. And so now I actually vet for this early.
Yeah.
And stress test it, because I don't want that for anyone. It's not just that it's a nightmare to coach through in the moment, but it is just that you don't want that to be someone's experience, and you want them to walk into the stage feeling really good with the situation, really good with their ability to respond to bad, elements that might pop up. I also really look at, after that process of, can they take on board feedback? Are they someone that's not going to catastrophize the small things? Are they going to sweat the small shit? I then look at what's relationship with food. Are we going to have a person that has a problem? What's their dialogue like? Are they over restrictive, hyper obsessive? Is there, are they food porning and saving their IG food porn?
Oh my gosh, you see that
because
so much.
If they're doing that and they've already pre-bought the cookies for the backstage and the this and the that, I'm worried about the recovery and the reverse. I'm already concerned. But then again, though, you already know from prepping with me, we don't actually have good, bad food, and we actually factor things in so that we don't have that stuff as much as possible out the other side. Yeah. But if there is a sign of it, we just don't prep anyway. I don't
I've
think that we
seen
should.
people on the Stairmaster for an hour watching food videos.
That's disgusting.
Every day.
Like that actually
Crazy.
stresses me out thinking about it. Like, oh my God. If any of my athletes are listening to this and that's you, we have problems. We're going to have words. But yes, so I'm looking for dysmorphia. I'm looking for compulsive behaviors. I'm looking for that over training to train things off mentalities. I'm looking at anything at all that potentially could be magnified by prep, because that's exactly what prep does. It will not cure you of these things. It will only make them worse. So if I see signs of it, then we're having a conversation that usually goes like, it's just not now.
And how do people react? What do they say when you say?
Oh, look, usually there's tears. I ain't going to lie. Like if someone's got their heart set on something and we've started a process and I've had to pull them, they usually cry and they're usually upset and they usually feel like they've failed. And it's me guiding them through that this isn't a failing. This is actually an opportunity to make sure that we are unbeatable. And when I talk about being unbeatable, I don't just mean what we throw on stage. I mean unbeatable and unwaveringly unshakable as a human. So the psychological and the environmental components don't falter, right? Or very minimal. We've got shock absorbers. So stuff can come at us, but we're absorbing that stuff and we're moving forward, right? It doesn't take us off the track. And so, for me, I'm just all about explaining that it's not a no, it's just not this season. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I think the good thing about you too is you're not just going to say no and leave it at that. Like you're going to say no, explain why, and then explain, here's the next steps.
Yeah, the roadmap.
We're going to get there.
Yeah, exactly. The roadmap. And because you've seen it, it's cool. This is what I've identified. This is what we need to work on. This is why. This is the evidence to support my decision making. This is where we're going to go. This is what I think it's going to take. This is what we're measuring. This will be what we're going to experience in the next 3, 6, 9 months. This is the new projected timeline, but that stays fluid depending upon our ability to do all these things. Yeah. So I think it's just got to be that they feel confident that your decision-making process is rooted in objectivity and care, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I try to come from that place because I feel like then people understand what we're doing. Like, so if maybe it might be, cool, I see the potential, we will win something. I promise you that. I don't know how long, but we definitely will. But what it's going to look like is this. We need to get the menstruation online. Menstrual function must be online. We need to make sure that we've got 12 solid months of progressive training with good recovery, no injuries, no niggles. It means that we have a strong, restored metabolic baseline before we even look at going into anything. It means that we have absolutely no triggers, dialogue, or anything that is concerning about you with food. It means that we've got ticking of the boxes on all of the markers we're looking at, both psychologically and physiologically. We've got these objective data points. They're not opinions. They're literally the things that tell us and inform us that you're ready to go.
Yeah, exactly. And do you have some clients that just walk away?
Yeah,
stop when you say
absolutely. That? I definitely do. I definitely do. And look, would I say it's a large amount? No, I wouldn't. I would say, okay, let me caveat this. Girls that know me, girls that have a good relationship with me and have worked with me for a period, when I pull that trigger, they trust me. Later, they have always said to me, and you're in a prime example of this, I'm so glad you didn't let me do that.
Yep.
I am so glad you made me wait. We wouldn't have gotten XYZ if you had to pull the trigger. I just watched person over here do this thing this way, and I've seen what's happened. And thank God you didn't let me do that. That would have been me. Exactly. Like they're the conversations I get from the ones that lean into. I'm not saying they don't cry at first. They definitely do, and they still have a moment of fuck you, Ellie. But at the same time, we always come together afterwards, and they're like, I'm glad we didn't. Yep. And then it makes sense, and they usually get what they want. The ones where it's more difficult are the ones that come to me and go, I know you know what you're doing. I want you to take me there. Then you give them the reasons why the timeline shouldn't look like they want. And then they say, okay, well, I'm going to go with someone else. They're the most difficult ones because they've not worked with you yet enough to fully trust you. They have not worked on the foundations to move past the issues that prep is only going to exacerbate. And then sadly, you know they're going to go off and have the really bad repercussions that are going to come in the aftermath.
Yeah.
And there is nothing you can do about it. And that is the one thing that, as a coach, you got to reconcile sometimes is, okay, I can't change that for them. I'd love to, but I can't. So interestingly, quite a few come back. The ones that will leave, or even the ones that go, okay, I want to come to you, but you've told me something I don't want to hear. I'm going to go over there. They eventually come back. Sometimes they come back and they're really close to stage and they're like, I should never have done that. And I'm like, well, I tried telling you, but, so interestingly enough, most will eventually come back. And it's usually because they've found out the hard way.
Yeah.
And it's, and I don't want that for anyone, but hey, it is what it is. Sometimes that's how people learn. And I guess for me, when I'm talking like this, all I would hope, because I'm not for everyone and I don't even profess to be. And there are certain clients that I just say no to because I don't actually think I can get the best out of them. So I won't work with everyone. It's that simple. But what I would say is this, anyone listening to this, I hope it just sparks the concept of be honest with yourself around some of the things that I have said are flags. Do these things pop up for you, right? And then what I want you to think about is, have I had these conversations with my coach? Can I have them with my coach? And also maybe there's things you want to ask your coach to start factoring in. Because if your coach is really great and they really care about you, they're going to do it. They're going to take your feedback on board. And I'm not saying you need to leave your coach at all. It's just be aware of these things. And so what you don't want, and what I hate to see for people is, extreme rebound weight gain, food obsessions, disordered eating patterns, months of metabolic recovery instead of weeks because they have done it the wrong way, a complete loss of enjoyment in training, body image deterioration, all these things that I tend to see. They're pretty predictable outcomes when preparation basically exceeds readiness. So if you're thinking about prep, make sure that all of these things have been discussed, or at least you have objectively asked these questions of yourself.
Yeah, and I think that's, a lot of things that you need to be aware of when you're about to go into a prep or you're looking for a coach to take you to stage.
Yeah.
Ensuring that you are getting asked the right questions and providing honest information as well.
Yeah, that's right. And so look, some clients and athletes genuinely just need another year or a little bit longer time, right? Others are simply afraid. But the things that I want to always look at is physiology being good, behaviors being locked in, recovery is excellent, relationship with food is healthy. It's just about when is the perfect timing. That's kind of what I'm looking for when I'm looking at the right person, right? Sometimes these people simply need permission to back themselves, and that's all it is. But other times, it's just something that should be happening later. So anyone listening to this and wondering if you're ready, the one question that you should probably ask yourself, and actually there's several questions that I would be asking myself or any of you. Ask yourself this: have I built up the behaviors before I start chasing the outcome? Would be number one. Number two, and I would argue this is probably the most important one, really, but behaviors and habits and the foundations, you can't build if you don't have those. So that's number one. Number two would be, does my current health support further stress? Am I already compensating or compromised? Because if you are compromised in one of those 4 buckets or domains that I've talked about, question yourself further. And then the final one that I always ask is, am I chasing this because I love the process? This is a really important one, right? Or because I'm hoping the result is going to change how I feel about myself. So it does not. A $2 freaking trophy and thousands of dollars wasted on something where you might not have been ready for it is not going to change how you feel about the way you look, about yourself as a person, about your lovability, all of the things that go through your head. So if any of those things are happening for you and you think this is going to make your life drastically better in some way, I would absolutely be saying this is not the right time, because it should be more about, is the process of the person that I will become on this journey, Is that what I'm leaning into? Is that what's important to me? If that is your answer, then this is the right time. If it is not, then it is not yet.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's where the wins come from, is the process and who you become through that process of actually getting to the stage. It's nothing to do with the result 100%. Or what happens when you're actually on stage for a few minutes.
Yep, 100%. So guys, look, I think the goal isn't simply getting on stage. I've talked about this a lot. The goal is about walking off stage healthy, both physically, psychologically, and that you keep loving the sport long after the tan washes off.
Exactly.
Cool. I hope you guys all liked it. I hope you got something out of it. For anyone that's ever walked away from me, I hope you now understand why I said what I said. And I, really hope that everyone takes a harder, longer think about whether or not they're genuinely ready.
Yeah.
Because there's always going to be a stage, guys. God, they just announced a 50+ category, for crying out loud. There is always going to be a stage. You can do this till you're dying if you want to. So there is no rush, is the point I'm trying to make. Make sure your ducks are in a row and everything is solid before you start something that is going to be very challenging and very taxing on you as, a whole.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, comments are always open. Your DMs are always open. My DMs are always open if anyone has questions or
definitely
want to chat about anything further.
Perfect. All right, guys. Till next time.
Thanks.